Happy Thursday, and welcome to another Prasada Talks. In case we haven't, and we're talking about presence today. In case we haven't met, I am Meg Townsend. I'm a whole being guide with Prasada, and I am joined today by, who are you, sir?
I'm Jack Curley. I'm another whole being guide with Prasada, amongst other things.
Yes, and Jack brings the mindfulness expertise to our programming, and so this is a big month for Jack with this theme of presence that really informs all that we're exploring in our newsletter, in our programming with our clients, and then with you, the public. So we are super excited to be here, and I invited Jack to have a little bit of an experiment of presence with me in this Prasada Talks, in that we didn't prepare much because I wanted us to really tap into the presence of this moment and really be present with each other in this conversation. So there are a few bullet points that we'll hit and chat with, but I'd love, Jack, if you could just get us all present, maybe guide us through a short breath practice that we typically do in our presentations, just so we can all be present in this moment, whether people are live with us in the Zoom room or watching on Facebook. Are you open to that, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So first of all, just settle down. Just sit back in your chair, relax. Let's take a couple deep breaths through the nose and out through the mouth. And now, if you haven't closed your eyes, I invite you to, or soften your gaze and just bring your attention inside. Just notice what is present for you right now. What sensations are you feeling in the body? Where are they? And what type of thoughts are going through your head in the last hour or so and presently? And now turn your attention to the environment around you. What can you hear? Is it warm or cold? Notice how your awareness stretches much further than your body. You can be aware of sounds quite a distance away. And now turn your attention to that awareness that knows what you're sensing in your body, that knows what's going through your mind, and knows what's available to you in the environment around you. And simply marvel at awareness, this quality of our human life that allows us to be present with whatever is going on. And for just a few seconds, just sit and revel in that awareness. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Breathe out long through the nose. Notice the relaxation that follows that out breath. And perhaps notice a more expansive feeling. Take another deep breath in, and as you breathe out, you may open your eyes.
Thank you, Jack. I love how it doesn't always have to take much. right? Just to like come back to the present moment and yourself. And I'm wondering, Jack, how long have you been practicing mindfulness? Quite a while.
Well, I've been meditating for 50 years. Mindfulness, though, in its specific form that is popular today, is really, for me, the last 10 to 15 years that I sort of saw this nuance of what mindfulness is and how it relates to meditation. So I would say 50 years, but the last 15 or so, seeing mindfulness as something specific in meditation.
Okay. And so tell me this then, in the past, let's look at like 15 years. How have you come to see your attention and your ability to be present? How have you seen that evolve over these 50 years, but then really hone in?
Yeah. So initially, I started meditating when I was in my late teens as a way of managing stress, as a way of exploring different, like a different approach to life. It was the ability to find some peace within. Originally is why I started, and then it became an aspiration for me that I realized you could, if you did this enough, you could develop sort of this reservoir of calm within. And as a person who was, it still is, prone to overstressing, getting nervous. I kind of grew up a little nervous about things. As I practiced more and more, I did develop that. But in a sense, meditation was always something to take me away from what was happening in my life and deliver me to like an island of contentment. Mindfulness, though, came about when I started to realize that you can't get away from everything. And it really rang home for me when I started a new job in California as an engineer and I had a lot more pressure. And I realized I couldn't meditate myself out of the stress and demands of my job, that I had to find some new application of this. And that's when I began to realize that I had to sit with what I was experiencing and not try and move away from it, but allow myself to experience it, to allow it to be there, to get curious about, what's going on here, and then learn how to take care of myself with that level of stress, because in my profession, stress was a norm. And I worked with the public and public meetings and politicians and federal agencies. And so there was a lot of demands and pressures. And I finally realized that it's not going to go away. I need to be present. And that's how it has evolved for me, realizing that I can be present with even challenging things. I don't have to try and run from the challenging things, or in my case, sit from the challenging things. That there's some good in them. The whole idea of good stress, bad stress.
Yeah.
Some things pressured me to perform, and I realized, okay, got to perform. So, yeah, I think that was the evolution for me, was accepting my life as it is and accepting me as I am, and saying, I start from here. I start from where I am, and let's build.
I love the imagery. I'm still back at like one of the very first things you said, that imagery of the reservoir of calm. That there is that like remembrance of that reservoir of calm. And so an imagery just always resonates with me, kind of coming back to that in times that are challenging. So can you give an example of like, whatever feels comfortable for you to share, but, of how this reservoir of calm right, has supported you during uncertain or even more turbulent times beyond
Hmm.
just like day-to-day intense stress of work. But do you have any thoughts, examples you're open to?
Well, in general, what I've seen is that during times of adversity is when I've seen the value of having practiced prior to the times of adversity. So in general,
Hmm.
having that muscle strength, if you will, that muscle memory, for lack of a better term, uh, that there is this place in me that I can retreat to, um, helped. Specifically, I think I could probably read off times of adversity. Uh, well, relationships gone bad, stress at work. Well, let's just take today, for example. Like right now, I woke up this morning, I wasn't feeling very good. And in the past, I may have looked for some way to change that. Or I may have tripped out thinking, oh my God, I don't feel so good. I got this to do today. I got that to do today. And I think what's happened is that this reservoir of calm is much more of an active part of me.
Mhm.
That when I see myself getting stressed and notice the thoughts that go with that and the sort of failed strategies I've done in the past of how to make things go away start to come up, this reservoir of calm exerts its is that the right word? Imposes, almost like it steps into my, it's part of how I function now.
Mhm.
And I just catch myself and I just say, okay, I'm not feeling my best today. That's fine. Take a few deep breaths, just allow that to be what it is and be present anyway. And I think that's the thing. It's, I can say to myself, be present anyway, but what I found is that I'm able to do that. And I think that has come from practice, um, and really a love of and devotion for that part of myself, that
Mhm.
awareness, that part of me, that the part of me that sits up in meditation, right? That part of me that sits and is aware has become more so who I am than all of the things that happened to me. So I can't think of anything specific beyond today, but it's times of adversity where I've really seen it.
Gold stars for being present in that you're just like, and today is what I see is that I'm being present with.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I
I
love
mean,
that. I love that piece you share about, and I don't know if you saw me just like, yes, that's 100% like right on the nose of, we find that our practice like prepares us for.
mm,
And I had that experience in March when I was in Arizona caring for my mom in hospice. And I just was like, this is why I've done 15 years of practice, because this is the hardest thing that I've done thus far in my life. And I can do this, and I can tap into these aspects of compassion and love and gratitude and just being present with her in this, very transitional moment of life.
mm.
And like hold that space without
Well,
totally, there was of course lots of other days where I had
exactly. Exactly.
total breakdowns and like experienced every human emotion on this. One day I called my partner and I just said, I think I've experienced every human emotion you could possibly experience today. It was like my body was just exhausted from that.
Yeah.
But such a gift of practice to still remain somewhat steady in that. So that's what I always say to people. That's why I practice. I mean, this was a very, grand example of the gift of the practice.
Yeah. That also, what that brings to mind for me is uncertainty. So, we all look into the future, you know, um, What if I'm not healthy? What if I have something that's going to um, cause me to be less functional, things like that, especially as you get older. And what I've seen is that I can just recognize, well, that's uncertainty. And if I follow those thoughts, there's really no answer. I don't know. But what am I doing right now in my life to address those possibilities? Now, some of them are too far-fetched, but some of them are like, well, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, I meditate, I try and be kind to people. I look at the things I am doing and saying, whatever happens there, I'll be fine. Because whatever happened in the past, I was fine. Even though it could have been very difficult times, staying with this constant. In mathematics, we have things called constants, like pi. Everyone's familiar with pi. It's a value. It's always the same. And that's how I sometimes think of awareness. It's a constant in my life. And you and I have both studied yoga philosophy. And so many times in yoga, they talk about, there's childhood and then this stage of life and then that stage of life, then old age and then death. And yet they always talk about this constant that's behind that. And that's what awareness is. Awareness is a constant. It doesn't age. There's a part of us that doesn't age. It's just there. And so not only with what's present now, but when I start to go into, that mind mode of thinking about the future, I'm able to anchor myself in the present moment and say, I don't know what tomorrow will bring, and that's okay. And not trip out on it, And that comes from, like you're saying, I know what you went through, and I'm still going through. I know that with grieving and your life, and also the happy parts of your life are happening too. I know that, and yet you remain constant. I can see that there's a constancy to you. Like you're able to share your difficulties as well as your joys, and it's a common voice, and that's you. That's the deep you. That's the deep you, and that's what I think this practice has done for me and still does. And that's why I do it every day, because the truth is I can see in people who don't practice how their minds often take them down the primrose path and increase their suffering when it's not necessary. We all have troubles. Anyway.
So tell me this, Jack, what advice would you have to, say, someone who watches this and they're, at a different stage on the path than we are, and they're like, where do I even start? Like, what do I, because it's not like all of a sudden we both did mindfulness. And, my first mindfulness success story was like, I found joy cleaning a toilet, right? That was like when I knew there was something to mindfulness, but that was a long way from that to the events of this year. So where does somebody just start on this path if they're curious to, and what advice would you have for them?
Well, one thing I think I hear often is people say, I don't have time, right? Because I think the concept behind that is I have to stop sometime in my day, sit down, close my eyes, and spend 15 minutes when I'm super busy and do nothing. So I would say the first place to start is with what you already do. So for example, everybody prepares meals. So the next time you're preparing a meal, see if you can just be present with just preparing it and get curious and enjoy, when you cut open a beet and you look at the color and the pattern and the beet, and you can just be present with that and enjoy and immerse yourself in the moments that you already have. So presence is about understanding that our minds are always working, And yet what you're doing requires, what you're doing is an opportunity to bring your attention into the present moment. So you can start with whatever you do. And then the second thing I would say is see if you can find 5 minutes. See if you can find 5 minutes to just sit down and just breathe, and just allow yourself to just breathe and be there with your breath and watch your thoughts. And if your thoughts are saying, no, 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 you got things to do, just say, oh, there's my thoughts telling me I have things to do. So for those 5 minutes, nothing else gets any purchase with your attention. Your attention right now is on just sitting and breathing. And that's where you can begin with what you already do, like walking, a walking meditation. You know, for me, mindfulness has become pretty much everything I do. So when I'm walking, I notice, how are my feet feeling? You know, am I paying attention to my gait? Am I, and not even am I just do, I just pay attention and, hit my heel first and roll over to the balls of my feet. And, and I might not do that for the whole walk, but I spend a few minutes at least getting present with what I'm actually doing, rather than walking somewhere and tripping out on whatever, and then getting home and saying, oh, what happened there? So does that answer your question, Meg?
It does. And this piece too, as you were speaking, I was really using that as an opportunity just to be present. And I was noticing that the more that I tuned into my breath and was aware of my breath and would kind of consciously breathe, that was a helpful anchor.
Yeah.
In that moment where I was like in my body and still able to really be present and take in what you were saying. And I love those two suggestions, like start where you are with what you're already doing. Easy. And then find 5 minutes. Yeah.
You just brought to mind another one, listening.
Mm-hmm.
When someone else is talking, often we're already planning what we're going to say next. And that's natural. And yet it's really important that other people feel heard, especially people in your personal relationships, people in your professional relationships, so you can practice listening. And what you just said is a great illustration of having little strategies to keep your attention in the present moment. I scrunch my toes, and it gives me a feeling of grounding. So because I think what happens when I'm listening to someone, I start to sort of float away into my own thing. Maybe they've said something that's got me, and yet I want to listen. So sometimes I just ground myself. I check my shoulders sometimes, and I just relax my shoulders. And breathing is a big one. Just sitting there, and no one knows you're doing it, right? But you're bringing your attention into the moment. And when you bring your attention in the moment, others can feel that. Yeah. And so listening can be a great way to not only connect with yourself, but to connect with others, and they can feel that. So that's another one you can do.
Ooh, I love that. And now I want to ask, I'm going to put you on the spot. It may or may not show up, but is active listening going to be a part of your mindfulness, the inner adventure workshop that we're doing this month?
That's a great idea. I love active listening, and I didn't think of it, Meg. So I'm going to add that. I think an active listening exercise. The thing about the workshop I'm doing is I really want it to be experiential. Yeah. I want to talk little and guide more. So of course I want to bring some perspectives on mindfulness from different people. I also want to bring some science in, because that's something I love. I love how the science of studying mindfulness and meditation has just boomed over the last 15 years. And I want to bring in some of that because it's interesting. And these things help us get momentum. But mostly I'd like to do a body scan. I think active listening is a great idea because it brings it into the moment. I'd like to do a choiceless awareness meditation, which is just sitting and just watching what you become aware of. And just as if you were watching clouds go through the sky, and then watch if something takes you away and bring it back. So I want to do something like that. And of course, a little movement. We always have to do movement. We always have to find some way to anchor ourselves into the body. And movement is really that. Our body is such a great instrument. And yet we often spend time in our heads thinking we can remedy things with thoughts. And we can't think ourselves out of what the body's experiencing. Yeah. But when we turn our awareness to what our body's experiencing, it kind of liberates us. And it even changes our body. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to add that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited. And I just put the link if people are here, and I'll definitely put it in the Facebook post of this live feed. The link to learn more about the workshop with Jack on October 22nd. Super excited for that. I had a thought and it's gone, which means maybe it doesn't need to be said. I think it was something.
Isn't that curious?
I know. I don't know what the context was, but as you were speaking and just talking about the body and like we can't think ourselves out of things, and two things. One was like pre-yoga and mindfulness practice, I felt like a floating head. I don't know if anybody's ever felt like that, but I literally felt like I was a floating head moving through whatever it was, 18, 19 years of my life, 20 years of my life before I found this practice. So just a floating head. And something that awareness has helped shift. Say, have you ever stubbed your toe?
Oh yeah.
Hurts like hell. And do you get angry when you
somebody? I look for somebody to blame.
I know, me too.
Hit the bed leg.
Me too.
I want to take an axe to this thing.
So one thing I've used mindfulness to explore, and I just want to offer this to people as another way to kind of explore presence and awareness, is next time you stub your toe, can you just be aware of the sensation? Just play around with that, like aware of it, and see if it shifts. That's all I'm going to say. Is sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But
well, I think awareness changes everything. And you know that I love that idea because I've seen it, like you're saying. Even when I stub my toe and I become aware that I'm grumbling and looking for somebody to blame, then I start laughing because all it was I stubbed my toe, and you can't talk to the bed because it never talks back. So, so awareness has this capacity or this ability or this magical way of transforming our experience into one that is more real and not so grippy. I don't know if that's a word, but not so much taking us by the shirt down the primrose path here. Just say, I stubbed my toe. I hate that bed, and then laugh. Oh, look at that. You're hating a bed,
Yep.
Yeah. And it applies to bigger things too, like that's kind of the basis of emotional intelligence, Meg, is that what am I feeling and why am I feeling it? And look at my reaction to it. So.
Yeah. Well, it's 1 p.m. and I want to honor all of our time. We did it.
That went fast.
We're ending on time. I know. Isn't it amazing how time is different when you're very present? So thank you, Jack, for joining me today. And thanks for really be open to this experiment of presence where we had no kind of set anything. And I said, let's just talk. And I know that maybe made you a little nervous, but this was quite a pleasure to just, because we do this all the time, after we're done presentations, we chat and this happens. So there's, something really potent about presence as well. And
it doesn't make me nervous. It actually makes me excited because I think presence and awareness is something to cultivate as much as you can.
Yeah.
And this is just another opportunity
to build that muscle.
So, ding, ring the bell.
Gold star, we did it. Thank you, everybody who showed up today, whether you are on Facebook Live watching along or you're in the Zoom room with us. We really appreciate your presence as well. And please consider joining us for Jack's workshop on Saturday, October 22nd. where you'll gain more experience, right? Hands-on body awareness, all sorts of great stuff. It's live on Zoom, so you don't even have to leave your house, and you'll get to just marinate more in these teachings and these experiences with Jack. So until we meet
Fantastic.
again, please be well. Have a wonderful rest of Thursday.
Thanks, Meg.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.